Hi, my name is Randy Noble. I'm a Christian author and a human rights activist for Iranians. I want to share with you briefly one of the books I wrote a few years ago. I'm holding it here in my hands. It's called Prisoner of Her Culture: Sakina's Fight for Freedom. You'll notice in the picture, if you can see it very well, it's kind of a shadowy picture of a young Muslim woman kneeling on the shoreline at sunset, and she's praying. She lives in Pakistan, and she has a very difficult life because women in Pakistan are oppressed and treated like second class citizens. My book is the story of Sakina's fight for freedom. She lived in Pakistan as a young child. She grew up as a brick maker, which means that she worked 14-hour days in brick kilns. Her father demanded that she do that because her father owed a lot of money. And so he put his children to work. And Sakina worked in the hot, oppressive sunlight 14 hours a day. Fast forward a few years, and she is now the victim of a forced marriage. Her father, again, having a quarrel with another local family in the village, decides the best way to pay off his debt is to arrange for his daughter Sakina to be married to this man, and then the debt is settled. So Sakina marries a man named Kamal, and he's very abusive to her. And during her time in Pakistan, she has to submit to him. She can't escape. But one day, many years later, this young Muslim girl migrates with her husband to the United States, and they end up living in Florida. To make a very long story short, she sees the way women are treated in Islam. And even though she's still a Muslim, a moderate Muslim, she attends university. And during the day, she begins a double life. She becomes a human rights activist for women in Islam. And she even rents a film named Honor Diaries. It's a real film. And in my story, she begins to educate people on the campus about the oppression of women in honor killings all over the world because of Islam. And she takes questions, she has classes, but at the end of the day, when she goes back home, she hides all of her human rights activities from her husband and pretends she's this submissive wife to her husband, Kamal. What is very interesting about this book is it's based on a true story. About 5 or 6 years ago, I encountered a young British Pakistani woman online. Her name was Saba, and we became friends, and she invited me to a showing of the film Honor Diaries at a university campus. And so I went and I attended. A very brave woman. During the day, she was a human rights activist for women in Islam. Still a Muslim, but speaking out against the oppression. She wanted to see reform in Islam. I admired this woman so much, I had her on my radio program, and we talked about how women are treated. She told me, I have a husband living in Pakistan. My parents have arranged for him to come and live here in the United States. He's going to soon get his visa. Please pray for me, Randy. And I want you to write my story if something ever happens to me. It was shortly after she told me this that I never heard from her again. One of the last things she told me was, I am going to take martial arts class to defend myself because I know what I'm in store for when my husband comes to the United States. I took what little I knew about Saba and turned it into a semi-historical fictional account in this book. This book is dedicated to my friend that I've never seen in 5 years, but I pray for her. In this book, you are going to read a story that is based on the story of a real person. And you're going to meet a character named Sakina. And she is going to fight for her freedoms as a Muslim woman. I really recommend that you read this book. It is quite an incredible story, not just because I had something to do with writing it, but because it's based on the life of a real person. And when you read this book, it takes place both in Pakistan and Florida. If you want to read this book and be educated about this great woman named Sakina, based on a real life person, I highly recommend this book because it's action-packed, it's graphic, it's violent, but as all of my novels, it is a Christian worldview book. I don't want to spoil a lot of the details. I really want you to read this. And so you can get this in both paperback and Kindle on Amazon.com. Prisoner of Her Culture, Sakina's Fight for Freedom. Thanks so much for watching. God bless you and have a great day.